Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm gamesplaining Alma Mater. In the game of Alma Mater, you are running a university. Your job is to get professors in to teach your classes and students in to take those classes. This is in essence a worker placement game. You start the game with 4 professors. Each time you wish to do one of the things on the board, you will place a professor there and do the thing. If someone else wishes to do that, they can, but they need to place one more professor than the largest number there. So if Red wishes to do this action now, he will need to place 3 professors onto there because there were 2 blue there already. Green is not able to do that again, and that's the same for all of the spots with the exception of these 2 down the bottom. This track along the outside or left-hand edge is of benefit for you to move up. There is money in this game, but the other economy is books, and books of your particular color. So in order for you to gain the students or the professors, you're going to need certain numbers of different colored books. You have your own colored book, which is in your player color. You have dictionaries, which are the yellow ones. They're a bit hard to get, but they are possible. And then there are also the other 2 player colors. Any of the books that are up in this bookshelf area, otherwise known as the display, those books are for sale, so other players are able to purchase them so they can fulfill the criteria necessary for each of the different areas. So what does a turn actually look like? We start by moving in turn order. So red would go first, then blue, then green in this particular case. Each player will select one of their professors or more if they need to use more to take one of these spots that has the grey circle. If you're playing a 4-player game, there are 4 down there, so 1 for each of the professors, and there's 2 down here. But in a 2 or 3-player game, this is what we're left with. When you select the spot, you need to be able to do the spot. You can't just select the spot and go, okay, I'm done. Just to make it more expensive for other players, you need to be able to also fulfill the requested criteria. So in this case, this player has the choice of taking one of these 4. There's only 3 here because in the setup, this tile was taken by 2 players. There are only 2 of each different student in a 3-player game. In a 4-player game, there are 3 of each different student, but there's still not quite enough for everyone to be able to get 1 of each. When you select here, you are selecting also how to pay for that student to come in. So if he goes here and wants to get this student, he's going to have to pay 2 of 1 colored book and then 1 each of 2 other colored books. He only has 2 different colors, and one of them is a dictionary, which would probably be better used over on these 2 lines. What these Roman numerals are talking about is over here. This is filled up at the end of round 1. So at the end of round 1, the player who is highest on this research track, so blue at the moment, would get the first position. Let's, for example, just imagine the green had managed to move there. If, however, that's what that looks like, red is considered to be ahead of green. Now we have books in 1, 2, and 3, which means if I wish to take this spot, I need 2 books of the blue color, 2 books of either red or green, and 1 dictionary. So it's really worthwhile buying the books from other players, and I'll get to how to do that in a moment. If I go here, I'm wanting to pick up one of these 4 professor cards. Once again, there are only 2 of each professor. You can only take 1 of each specific professor, so you can't have multiples of the same thing. But there are only 2 in a 3-player game. In a 4-player game, it goes to 3, just like with the students. The first person here is going to spend 5 money. So this player only has 4, he wouldn't be able to actually go there. If he happened to have 5, he would spend that 5 money. He would spend 2 books of 1 color. Then he'd need to spend 1 book of another color, 1 book of another color. What's going to happen is he would have to mark those spots with the books that he's used so that in future, if someone else comes to get that professor, they're going to pay 2 green books, one blue book and one red book in order to get that professor. Notice that they didn't have to spend the 5 money. So the first person there spends money to get the order of books. The second person there does not have to spend the money. The other thing that happens when you purchase a professor is you get to use them straight away. So you do the thing in the bottom. Once that's done, that professor goes sideways. At the end of the round, so when everyone has been used, we would turn that back up. You'll notice there's a little sleepy bit here. In future turns, I can put a professor to sleep to use that card again, but only once per round. When they all come back, then he comes back and that flicks up. The other thing that you'll need to make sure you do is mark that professor with the top colored book so that you can remember that each time if you wish to use that professor, so lie him down, you're also going to have to use one of the green books to use that professor. Coming down here you can spend money to gain books. Anything in grey is a book of your own colour. Anything in yellow is the dictionaries. So if he had 9 money, he could spend the 9 money to get one of his own books and 2 dictionaries into this part of his board. The other thing he could do is move up 1 on this track, or he could move up 3, but in order to move up the 3, he would need to pay for the thing. So he'd need to pay 3 money for that one, he'd need to pay 7 money for that one, but then he reduces the amount of money depending on how many of these students he has. So in this case, he'd actually only be spending 3 money because he has 2 students. And then here he'd have to spend 5 money, but he'd get a 2 money discount per professor that he had. But as I say, the green ones are free movement. This can be used to spend 10 money to get 7 points. Anywhere you see this little marker is talking about the points on the outside track. Normally, most of the points will come in at the end of the game, but it's worthwhile getting some points because if you move your points marker to 15 or above, you get an extra meeple, professor, to play the game with. Other spots that you can get extra guys is here. If you fulfill what is at the top of A, B or C, if you fulfill A, which is 1 to move your token to here, you have fulfilled that. You'll take the card that's below the professor to show that you have the ability to use that card, but you'll also get an extra meeple. And so everyone's able to get that and that and that. This one, if you get 7 students, so you've got 2 at the moment, he would also get 2 dictionaries and a book in his colour to be able to use that professor. And the C one is when you get 4 professors, that will push you up this track 1 more. The other spot that you'll be able to gain the extra professor is when you get enough students to cover this spot. So if this player gets 3 more students, he will cover that professor and get the meeple. There are only 2 extra meeples, so even though there were 3 spots for those potential meeple, you can only get 2 of them. The only other spots on the board that I haven't dealt with are the bottom ones. With this spot, you can put 1, 2 or 3 of your guys in to get 2, 5 or 8 money. On a future turn, someone else may put in 3 guys to get 8 money. What that means is when we get to the end of a round, the player order will change. Blue, because he has the most here, will become the first player. Red has none there, so he would actually be pushed all the way back to 3rd player, and green would be 2nd player. If that's what it looks like, green would be 1st player. Even though there's 2 of each, green did it first, so he would actually get 1st player. And as stated before, this one can only be used once by each player per round. The only other spot I haven't dealt with is this one just here. That one can be used as many times as you wish. You're only ever placing 1 master on there. So the whole thing of having to put more than the most of the previous players, or the having to put 2 in when there's 1 there already, doesn't exist on this spot. You're choosing one of these 2 actions. So either you can purchase books from another player. So if I purchase this one, I would be paying 4 money to the blue player to get the blue book. You can only do that for 1 other player each time you visit that particular location. If I wish to get some red books, I would need to do it again, and I can buy 3, 4, depending on how much money I have. If I had 13 money, I could buy all 4 of those books. If I had 3 money, I could buy 1 of those books. The other thing that happens when I purchase the book from here is I can choose one of the locations I purchased the book from to take the point, because that's marked with 1 point. That bookshelf is then turned over and will stay face down for the rest of the game. Once everyone has used all of their professors, and bear in mind that sometimes you may have to sit and wait for other people to use professors, because you may have used 3 of your guys on this spot, which means you only actually have 1 other action to go, whereas everyone else is using the 1 professor thing, so they have 4 actions. You may have to sit and wait. So, first thing, we change the order of this depending on how many people have visited there, as previously discussed. Then we reduce the number of books. The number of books you can hold is told to you by the students. So, at the moment, this player can hold 7, this player can hold 6 books. Because he only has 5, that's fine. Because he only has 6, that's fine. There's no necessity to drop books. If these books happen to be out here, he would need to get rid of one of the books, and he would choose which one to get rid of. Notice that if they're in the bookshelf, they do not count against that limit. But also, because I have this student, he adds 4 extra books to the total that I can hold. So this board, this player, can actually hold 11 books over on the side at the moment. And this player can hold 10. That player can only hold 6. We then go to the turn order, and so that's the order of these books. Whoever's the highest up this row gets the first place, then green, and then red is on the bottom. Okay, next we go to the professors. So any of these professors that you've got, you would turn them upright and put the meeple back onto your board. Then you pull back all the meeples from the board, so it clears it for the next round. You move this one along 1 track, and then we go to an income. With the income, firstly you would get 1 money income per book in your display. So green would get 3 money, blue would get none, and red would get 4. Then you gain income from each student that actually have this little marker. So green would get 1 and blue would get 1. And then you gain income depending on the order of your books up here. So blue gets nothing, green gets 1, and red gets 2. Once that income's happened, everyone's bookshelf moves along 1, so each book would get a little bit cheaper. The one that comes off the end goes there waiting to go back in next turn. If this one that's face down, comes off the end, it stays face down and goes back on face down. Once that's happened, that comes back to the beginning and we go again. And that is realistically the entire game. Just so you're aware what you're looking for in the final scoring, so things that you're building towards, is each book that you've got here, you trade for 1 money. Then for every 4 money that you have, you would gain 1 point. Then for every dictionary that you have, you would gain 1 point. Then you're going to gain points for your book order at the top here. So you're going to gain 12 points for being in position 1. So blue would get 12 points at this stage. 7 and 3, or if you're in a 3-player game, 12 and 5. And the third book doesn't get any. Then you're doing a multiplication of the number of milestones you've reached. So each top of the card is called a milestone. As you're moving up this, whenever you get to the top one, that automatically pushes you to the milestone and you get the thing that's marked there. So in the final scoring, you're multiplying however many milestones you've reached by the number of professors that you have. So if you've managed to gain 2 professors and you've got your marker up here, you've got 3 milestones, multiplied by 2 professors is 6 points. Then you are gaining the points on your professor cards. So you'll notice there's markers just here, 4, 6, 8, 10. So any of those professors that you've brought in will gain points at this point in time. Then you gain any of the points on these students if you've managed to pull any of them into your lineup. Then you're multiplying the number of students you have in Lecture Hall A by the number of students you have Lecture Hall B, and you gain that number of points. And then you also gain points for the number of these cards that you have picked up throughout the game. So if you have 1 of them, you're getting 3 points, 2 of them is 7 points, and all 3 of them is 12 points. That is tracked around the outside. Whoever gets the most points is the winner of the game. I hope that gives you an idea of how this game plays. and helps you get it to the table. Please go ahead and watch my gameplay to get a feel for how the game actually plays. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be gamesplained, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.